a couple of phenomenons just kept coming up to the surface. And one was that they didn't know they were in a domestic violence situation. And emotional abuse is the root foundation of domestic violence. And so they were very confused and stressed because I like to use the image of a maze. And I think the maze is a metaphor for a conversation. A healthy conversation has an entrance point, as a maze does, and an exit point. And there's basically only one path to get out of the maze. And that is mutual respect, an earnest desire to want to understand one another, and then mutual listening, mutual validation, and then you move through to solutions. You can agree to disagree, but there's mutual respect. So it doesn't necessarily lead to a conflict. It's about sharing your feelings and concerns, and then you move to a solution. But in the maze, there are a myriad of dead ends. And that's what it's like to deal with an emotional abuser. The blocking, the stonewalling, the blame shifting, the denial, the lying, the so many behaviors that if it was just one behavior, if it was just lying that repeated over and over again, a victim would be able to say, there's repeated lying. I can recognize the pattern. But when there's multiple behaviors at play, they get confused. It's too confusing, it's too complicated. We're not taught growing up to have the emotional language to describe these manipulative and complicated behaviors, abusive behaviors that are playing out. So my experience has been that they are stuck in these states of prolonged stress and confusion, what are known as trauma states, often developing post-traumatic stress disorder. And then they develop post-traumatic stress disorder, which causes fragmented thinking, problem with cognition, and so many other problems that makes it even more difficult to discern what's happening. And they start feeling less about themselves. They think they might be the problem. Am I unlovable? There must be something inherently wrong with me. Maybe I don't know how to communicate effectively. Maybe I didn't learn how to communicate growing up. So maybe it's my fault. They don't necessarily recognize that it's their partner's dysfunction. If it was overt emotional abuse, loud raging, name calling, loud put downs, they're more able to identify something is off with my partner. But when it's covert emotional abuse, oftentimes they internalize it as something might be wrong with themselves, or they're just so confused because they can't name the behaviors that are happening. They don't know how to respond when their partner uses these covert behaviors, how to call it out for what it is and to set a boundary.